top administration officials. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Goldman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd love to get the extra minute that Mr. Fallon got as well. Thank you guys for being here today. We don't have a lot of time here. I have a lot of questions. If I cut you off, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to get through them. And I want to talk a little bit about the evidence you did have. Mr. Ziegler, you were the case agent. So how many documents would you say you gathered during the 5-year investigation?
So, however, I do believe I may have documents. I am limited by the statute, but I would be more than welcome to turn those documents.
No, I don't
over
need
to
them. How many? Just the number.
It was a significant amount of documents. I apologize.
Hundreds of thousands? Millions?
I don't want to put a number to it, but there was a lot.
Right. Bank records, right? You had a lot of bank records?
Yes.
Both domestic and foreign?
That is correct.
And you conducted search warrants?
Yes, there was reference in our transcripts to conducting electronic search warrants.
And did you do other search warrants as well?
When you say other search warrants, what do you mean?
Any other search warrants? Electric, otherwise, physical?
So I'm going to stick to what I stated in my transcript. There were multiple electronic search warrants.
And you said that you conducted more than 60 interviews as part of this investigation, is that right?
That is correct.
That's a lot for any investigation, right? For a tax investigation?
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I would say that.
All right, in my 10 years, I don't know how many investigations I did with 60 interviews. So I want to focus, though, for a second on the WhatsApp that we went through. And Mr. Shapley, in your testimony, your opening statement, you said that the text message, the WhatsApp message that we've been talking about, shows Hunter Biden discussing business with his father. Could you show me where in the text message it says anything about discussing business with Joe Biden?
So if you'd like me to go through it, I mean, I can take time to review it if you'd like me to.
Well, I don't have the time, unfortunately, as you point out. I will tell you the only thing it says about it is that Hunter Biden was sitting with his father. It does not say anything about discussing any business. And Mr. Shapley, you also said in your testimony, and we've talked about this a bunch, that the agents were prohibited from pursuing leads related to Joe Biden and the big guy, but the agents did that anyway, right? Interviewing Rob Walker.
Agents interviewed Rob Walker.
And they asked him about that, right?
The word big.
Right, they didn't use the word big guy, but they asked about it in reference to that text. And do you recall that Rob Walker actually said in response to that he was not aware that Joe Biden was ever a part of anything that he and Hunter were doing?
That's what the witness said, yes.
Yes. And then you describe a lunch, what we talked about earlier, where Joe Biden came to say hello at the Four Seasons Hotel to lunch that he was having with CEFC executives, right?
That's correct.
But what you didn't talk about is what Rob Walker said the origination of that lunch was. And you testified that he said that Hunter told his dad, according to Rob Walker, quote, "I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys." Now let me ask you something. That doesn't sound much like Joe Biden was involved in whatever Hunter Biden was doing with the CEFC if Hunter Biden is telling him that he's trying to do business with them, does it?
No, but it does show that he told his father he was trying to do business, and he was talking
well,
to
that
his
is
father
true. Hunter Biden
about the
does
business.
try to do business. That's correct.
Yes.
So you not only have no direct evidence connecting Joe Biden to any of Hunter Biden's business deal, you actually had proof that he wasn't involved. That is the proof that you had. And in the end of the day, that this was a 5-year criminal investigation with tens of thousands of documents, maybe hundreds of thousands, unusual warrants, aggressive techniques. You wrote a report recommending felony charges. It went to DOJ tax. They wrote a 99-page memo, approval memo, right? And neither of you saw that, did you?
That's correct.
That is correct.
And what was their recommendation?
So all I know
Approval,
is,
discretion, or declination?
so from I have to stick to the
Okay,
confines of...
you testified that it was discretion, which means that it wasn't an approval, it was to the discretion of the U.S. Attorney's Office, which had that DOJ tax memo, which had information from the defense lawyers that they spoke with, and they are the ones who have to prove this case in court. And I will tell you, as a federal prosecutor for 10 years, and I worked with many of your colleagues who do great work, and I'm sure you do great work as well. But I never met an agent who didn't want to charge every possible case. But what I noticed in 5 hours of testimony today is that neither one of you has ever mentioned a portion of the case that may not be so strong, or may be suspect, or may have a defense. And that's because that's what the prosecutor has to think about before charging a case. And that is not what the special agent report does.
Gentleman's
So,
time's
in the end-
expired. He went a minute over. Chair now recognizes
Thank you.
Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania.
I thank the
First of all, I want to get the elephant out of the room. Just to be clear, both of you provided deposition testimony, and in your depositions, neither one of you ever stated that President Joe Biden interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript doesn't include that, no.
Yeah, the transcript does not include that.
Nor does it include that Merrick Garland interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript does not say that, no.
Thank you. The reason that I say that is because it's the insinuation that this committee is trying to make, or at least one side of this committee is trying to make, is that for some reason there was interference, and my colleagues continue to make sure that they outline the fact that this investigation actually started under the Trump administration. So that's the reason about who appointed who comes up. But at the end of the day, we have no evidence whatsoever that the president nor the Attorney General of the United States interfered. But I also want to make sure that we outline some legal principles, since we've got so many newfound prosecutors today on this committee. Number one, just to be clear, just because you investigate something, it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a conviction, correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. In fact, in our criminal justice system, you are cloaked in a presumption of innocence. That is what happens under the Constitution, okay? So we all have a role to play. Your role is investigative, correct?
Correct.
All right. So then you have an AUSA, who usually is the one that is responsible for taking the evidence. Actually, they probably have an investigator in their office. There's usually an investigator that is directly within their office that will review any documentation that you provide, and then they will sit down and talk to the AUSA's office about recommendations, like what the charges will look like and things like that. Is that not correct?
If that's correct, I've never seen that.
Okay. Well, let me be clear. There is a level after you get done with your investigation in which the U.S. Attorney's Office then will look at the evidence that you've provided, and they will make decisions, correct?
Yes, and they all four assigned attorneys agreed with recommending felony and felony and misdemeanor tax charges.
I heard your testimony before. I'm not going to dispute that. The difference is I've done the defense side of this before. So as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like a sweetheart deal, because I've never pled anyone to every single count of a federal indictment in the first place, unless they only had one count. I have always negotiated, and unlike on the state level, I typically do my negotiations a lot of times before there's even an indictment, because a lot of times my clients are actually turning evidence over and all kinds of things. But the thing is, those conversations have never taken place with an investigator. They always take place with the U.S. attorney. So the point is, you don't have the ultimate charging authority. The people that did, they decided to do what they decided to do for whatever reasons, correct?
So in my experience, I've always been a part of that, at that table, talking to the AUSA and talking about the charging decisions. So that's not accurate to say that I'm not,
So for this,
investigator is not involved in that
So
process.
this time it was a little different for you, and that's why you felt as if something was wrong. But I want to get to something else really quickly. I want to talk about what we should be prosecuting. We should be looking at the fact that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, he also made $6.5 million from China, his tax returns show. The source of the China payments is not clear from the returns. The payments were a surprise, since Trump is an outspoken critic of the $5.8 million that Hunter Biden made. The difference is, Trump was our president when he made this money from China, whereas I'm sure you would agree with me, Hunter Biden has always been a private citizen. We've got a lot of other stuff. In fact, it's clear that Trump never paid more than $750 in taxes for, I want to say, a total of like 2 years of his taxes, which is absolutely insane. But we also know that it showed that Trump claimed large cash donations to charities, but the report said the IRS did not verify them. The report also said that while Trump's tax filings were large and complicated, the IRS does not appear to have signed experts to work on them. That is shameful. In addition to that, we heard testimony earlier that talked about whether or not you executed a search warrant under Section 913.420 of the DOJ's Justice Manual. It specifically states that when searching the premises of an attorney that is the subject of an investigation, prosecutors are expected to take the least intrusive approach consistent with vigorous and effective law enforcement. It's kind of what they did for Trump when they gave him a number of opportunities to turn over the documents, our national secrets, that he kept in the toilet. But he chose not to, and that's why he is facing federal charges down in Florida. And finally, I just want to make sure that we clear up something about the Central Park 5, because I don't think my colleague from the other side of the aisle understands that not only were they found to be not guilty, they were paid $41 million in a 2014 settlement because their civil rights in that lawsuit were violated. In addition to that, we do know that one of the Central Park 5 now serves on city council, Yusuf Salam. So I ask unanimous consent that I allow this New
Without
York Times
objection, so
article be
ordered,
admitted.
and the lady's time's expired. But would the lady yield to a quick question?
To who?
Would you yield to a question?
Yes.
You made the argument that Trump received $6 million from China or something, and
I have the
Hunter Biden received the money from China. Do you know exactly what Hunter Biden did to receive the money from China? Because that's something we've had a hard time trying to figure out. I think I know what Trump's businesses were. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just know what his businesses are. I don't know what the Biden's businesses are.
And you don't know what it's not.
I'm sorry?
And you don't know what it's not either.
But what I'll say.
So you have no idea why or why not he received that money.
What I will say is,
You have
Chairman,
no evidence about it.
can I submit this MSNBC or this NBC article for the record as well?
Without objection, so ordered.
And I will say that in this article, it specifically says that the source of a number of Trump's monies, it was unclear. He just said that he did have businesses there. He did say that he had opened some bank accounts in China, but they could not find the source of the monies that were paid to him from China.
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner from Kansas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today. There's a lot of information. Let's try to quickly lay this out for the American people, okay? So quick answers. How long have